Hello, and thank you for joining me here. Today we're going to get into some talk about extraterrestrials and communication with them. So what are your thoughts about contact and communication with extraterrestrials, those that live beyond our planet? Will the communications only be mathematical, computational, or logarithmic in nature? But could the communications happen to come through through pictures and images? Since 1984, the SETI Institute has been sending and receiving radio waves searching within the electromagnetic spectrum for signs of intelligent life out there. But what if this communication instead will come through forms in images and pictures and will be broadcasted at the quantum level of light as a photon? And if it comes as a photon and this communication is possible, what does this Logitech camera, it's probably 1997 circa, and this ball of water have to do with any of this at all? Welcome to Creative Visions TV. I'm your host, Karen Dahlman, and today we're going to get into this topic of communicating with extraterrestrial life. So we're going to be talking about this topic, but it starts first with learning to talk with ghosts and spirits, which then evolves into other life forms. So how is this done? Let's just say this communication was not found in radio waves, but instead was found within the visible light spectrum. Now, our guest today in his research has shown and has been featured on many shows around the world, and especially on Coast to Coast AM. Now, that's where I first learned of this gentleman we're having on today. I was super excited, very intrigued, captivated by what he had to share, that I knew I just had to bring him here to you guys today. So originally, let me tell you about our guest. So originally from San Antonio, Florida, now currently residing in New York City, he is an artist, a photographer, and also a scientist who has developed a new method of spectroscopy, which is basically defined as the interaction between matter and the electromagnetic radiation, including light, that gets dispersed into a wavelength by a prism. Okay, we'll get more into that and we'll have him explain it to us. It really is a lot more simple than it sounds, although some complex things come out of it. While working with this process in 2015, he discovered not only a process for communication with ghosts and spirits, as I mentioned earlier, but this process then developed into communication with other life forms, extraterrestrial life forms. And you'll see why, how this happened. Now, he was able to communicate with them as they began to make themselves in images, in pictures, visible through this frequency of light. So, currently working as a scientist and researcher at Bent Light, our guest today seems to have found the interaction between paranormal activity, extraterrestrial activity, religion and science coming together, and what links it all at the cosmic level, a macroscopic level of quantum physics. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome William Lawrence to the show. Welcome, William. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm super excited to have you on. You have such intriguing things to say, so captivating, so unique. I've never heard about this before. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start at what took somebody who's an artist and a photographer into becoming a scientist and communicating with extraterrestrial life?
Actually, in 2010, I was in California and I made this discovery by accident in 2010 where I had sunlight coming in through my window. So I decided to make a rainbow and take a picture of it on a black refrigerator that was sitting next to the window. As I was photographing it with digital cameras, I zoomed into the actual rainbow that I made and I seen things that shouldn't be there. First off, in some of the blue area, I saw what looked like an Indian crossing a creek with 3 men on horses, and then next to a cabin. And then I saw a woman opening a door to a cemetery, but it was a brick fence, and you could see all the headstones and trees in the background, and she was opening a chain gate. And then I seen a temple. It looked like something from the 1400s with stairs and a lot of people and a big crowd. I also seen what looked like a soldier with a bazooka on his back, and he was actually smiling. He was just like looking right into the camera. All these things I discovered inside one little piece of light. It was inside the spectrum. So if you were to fast forward, in 2015, I remembered what I did then. So I decided to create an experiment. When I created the experiment, I assumed that I was just going to be able to communicate with spirits. So I grabbed what tools I could find and I started the experiment.
Okay, so let's back up here. So you saw these images on this black background through the prism of light, but how do you know you weren't just trying to make them there and trying to form, people form images in clouds, ducks, pigs, balloons. What told you there was something more there?
Curiosity, I would guess, because I remembered what I saw. I documented it on film. I still have the old camera that I videotaped the digital camera with. But when my mother found the camera, so she sent it to me in New York. And when I got the camera, I reviewed it. It wasn't as detailed as I remembered. So I decided, here, I know what I did, so let me see if I can recreate the experiment. And when I recreated the experiment, I was able to capture, luckily for me, on the very first day of experimenting with light, I was able to capture some graphically detailed photographs that can't be anything but what they are, which were shocking when I first originally discovered that it works.
So it could be a one-off thing, like, it was a fluke, you saw some images. It's like you could repeat this over and over and over again.
Correct. I ran the experiment for 2.5 years, and through that 2.5 years, I collected over 40 detailed photographs that were unexplained, where basically there were things and objects that are appearing that shouldn't be there. It should just be nothing but just regular noise, static, in the visible light. So what gave me the idea was then, when I saw what I seen, and then recreating the experiment. And I even told some friends of mine a week or two before, like, I'm going to do this experiment. I'm going to be able to communicate with ghosts. and boy, was I surprised when the first images came in. But to my surprise, weeks later, after analyzing the photographs from the experiment, I realized that I'm not just dealing with spirits. I'm dealing with something from another realm, extraterrestrial.
Interesting. So let's explain how you do this refraction process. Is that what it is? It's kind of a fraction with light. You take it and change it into a wavelength. Can you explain how that works?
Yes. So basically what you do is you take water. I have one here. You take a little bit of water in a bottle, and I have about 1 inch of water in the bottle. And I hold it at a 45-degree angle, so that way the sunlight is able to pass through. It's important, if you do try this experiment at home, that the bottom of the bottle be really large and round.
Oh, okay.
You can't really have small ridges. So what you need is a nice long curved roundness to the bottom. That way the sunlight can pass through. And what I do is I project that light to this piece of metal.
Check that out, you guys. You're not gonna believe what this is.
This is a paint and spackle mixer that you can purchase at the Home Depot. And in 2010, it was a black refrigerator, so I knew I needed something black, and I knew I needed metal. This is made out of carbon steel, so I've only been using carbon steel. And what you see, it's only a small little area here. So all the objects and images in the photographs appear in here, so they're actually smaller than the face on a coin with laser precision detail. So the photographs are very small. So what I do is I project the sunlight, through the bottle at a 45-degree angle. I hold the bottle about 2 inches away from the metal, and I project the light onto the piece of metal. There I take digital photographs with a Logitech 720p webcam, and I take around an hour of photographs. And you don't see anything as you're experimenting. You just want to get the right light consistency. So as you're photographing, you can't see. But it's not until after you analyze the photographs is when you're able to see unexplained objects appear. It's almost like electronic voice phenomena, but instead of getting digital audio, we're getting digital footprints imprinted into the photographs.
That's just absolutely stunning. So what made that shift, do you think, from more paranormal images you were seeing, like that soldier with the bazooka and the gate and all these people you were seeing, to this more other forms of life? What do you think in your mind made that transition?
Well, the very first photograph I seen through this experiment was on day one when I did about an hour of experimenting. I saw the human soul, and that would be photograph one.
Oh, wow. And you
And
guys are seeing it right now.
as I saw that, that is what whenever I saw him, it was like my wow moment. I'm like, wow, what is that? And you could see his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his shoulder blades, and a large, bright white forehead. Very, very detailed photograph. So that's what I initially seen. So then I was like, okay, this is a connection between spirits. Weeks
Oh.
later, I was re-reviewing the photographs, and I'm still running the experiment daily now. So that was the only thing I seen at the time. Weeks later, I'm looking back at the images, and I'm getting myself adapted to being able to see these spectrums and see what's inside the light. Then I notice what looked like a advanced reptile. It had large gold eyes. He blended in perfectly with it, so he was almost camouflage. If you didn't know what you were looking for, chances are you would have overlooked it because I overlooked it in the very beginning. But I found gold reflective eyes. That would be photograph two.
I
That
love
was
this image, by the way. That's a striking image. Almost eerie in a way.
So now he actually resembles what looks like a turtle because he has the gold eyes, he has an upside down mouth, he has two nostril holes, and a large brown head. Once I discovered this, is when everything turned extraterrestrial and paranormal. And on top of that, once I realized the extraterrestrial connection, I was then starting to get visited by UFOs almost nightly.
Is this still happening to this day too with the crafts you're seeing?
Not at all. No, they've actually been dormant for the past year. Also, I haven't been experimenting for the past year. I've been doing my best to communicate the results. So I did around 2.5 years of experimenting. Now I'm communicating the results, and the experiment will be coming back to life very soon.
Yeah, I hope so because these images are incredible. We're going to continue to show some of these images to you guys as we continue talking about this. So this is amazing. I mean, what would you like to tell people about doing this themselves? I mean, other than you said you need a bottle of water, you need that black metal thing. What else would you tell them? To have an open mind?
Definitely so. It takes a lot of patience. I did this
Yeah.
experiment for 2.5 years, and I would say in a 1 month period, I would experiment twice weekly. There were some months that I didn't get any detailed images whatsoever. I think the longest I went was 4 months without a
Really?
single detailed image. But I continued the experiment because I was still getting visited frequently. So I continued the experiment, and then they came back. So that it must have something to do with the signal or the frequency when you're able to connect with these extraterrestrials using these visible light frequencies.
It's almost as if they see you and know that you've seen them now. It's kind of like game up or or game on because now you're saying I see you, they know you see you, and now they want to communicate with you. Is that what you're getting from this?
They have acknowledged being seen, and through my research, what I realized with quantum entanglement, which is in use currently by NASA and India, Russia, the United States,
Yep.
Canada, all these countries are using quantum entanglement to communicate via the visible light frequencies, entangling data into photons. What I researched was with quantum entanglement, if someone was sending a message
Yep.
via light and it was entangled, if someone intercepted that message, they would be alerted instantly. So as soon as I took the very first photograph, they knew instantly. So they were alerted that I was able to see them. And even the very first photograph I took, which is photo 6, with the
Okay.
tall man wearing a robe, and a bald man kneeled down in front of the tall man wearing a robe. And in the middle, you see that the bald man kneeled down is holding a brown bowl. And in the bowl, he's holding it in front of him. And the tall man with the robe is actually washing something in the bowl, and you see red dripping down. That was the very first photograph, which I caught them off guard. So they didn't know I could see them. But after that photograph, every single photograph afterwards, they're looking directly into the camera like I'm looking at you and you're looking at me, which is kind of freaky.
That gives me chills. Okay, so I think we should talk about this process of entanglement a little further to break it down in simplistic terms. Do you want to explain that to them how that works?
Yes, well, basically, there's all this new technology. For years, we've been using radio frequencies to encode data and send communication, sort of like we're communicating now, but actually, we may be using fiber optics, which is using binary. Scientists have now discovered how to use these visible light frequencies, and what they're able to do is encode data into one photon. And what they do is they entangle that photon and they send that particle somewhere else, or they send a quantum key where they're able to distribute the message from point A to point B. Now, if point A is here and point B is on the other side of the universe, you are able to communicate instantaneously. So what data or information you put into this photon, any entangled photon will be able, or particle, it could be an atom, you could entangle many different things. Any data that you stick into one is able to read on the other. So it's like you're looking into a mirror, but then or a window, and you place that window on the other side of the universe, you can see out using quantum entanglement instantly. Now, scientists have experimented. They're currently using satellites where they're able to entangle data from Earth to a satellite instantly. And what they're doing is they're still transmitting on binary. Binary is ones and zeros. What they found out is they could double the load and have a 1 and a 0 both be a 1, a 0, and a 0 and a 1. Now, that's still binary. The photographs that we're seeing in these images are not sent using any type of Earth-like technology. They're able to manipulate the photons, and in the tiny image that you're seeing, you're looking at over 100 million photons in an inch or two of light. Now, the technology to entangle 100 million photons at one time to create a coherent image is non-existent. The most scientists have been able to entangle, photon-wise, is maybe 8 or 9 photons. So it's microscopic. You could barely see it with the naked eye. And what it was is a bitmap. So they're just doing like lines and dashes. They're able to send and then entangle the photons to create an image. So the technology to create an image out of 100 million photons instantly is non-existent.
That's just
On
absolutely
Earth.
amazing. And you mentioned something where you said when the signal was sent as this, I'm going to call it a packet. I like to see things as a packet. So you got all of these photons in there as a packet being sent here. Doesn't it exist at both places simultaneously? And isn't that why the sender knows when you intercepted the message?
They're instantly alerted as soon as if anyone observes it, because as soon as you observe the message, it deteriorates or breaks down. So it automatically alerts them, hey, someone tapped into the message.
Someone's messing with your photons.
Correct. And now this is why it's important and why I use sunlight. See, they could be anywhere in the universe. And if I was in another galaxy and I needed to communicate with Earth, I'm not going to be able to see that little pale dot. I'm not going to be able to target it. So what I would do is target the star closest to that planet, and I would send my information. I would entangle all the light from that star. That way I would send my message through the light. So anyone who has access to light from that star would be able to intercept the message. So they could be anywhere in the universe, entangling photons with our star, and that's how we're able to connect to them. It's like plugging into the intergalactic network or internet. I basically hacked our own star, and I'm using it as a satellite.
That's fantastic. I mean, this blows my mind. You guys see, this is why I had him on the show, because this is so intriguing and captivating. Not too many people are talking about it. However, tell us about what's going on. You said science is starting to pick up on this, and you've had some interactions there. What's been going on for you since you've come out with this?
I talked to a physicist at a dark matter underground neutrino detector, and I sent him an email, and he sent me back an email saying that I'm doing nothing but wasting my time.
Oh.
He was very polite about it, but he said, you're a smart guy. I wish you wouldn't go down this hole. So every scientist I have contacted to basically either A, thinks I'm crazy, or B, is not willing to listen to me tell them exactly what I'm doing and how it can be done. But the issue I'm having is I've contacted Seth Shostak from SETI Institute, and we spoke via the phone, and we also emailed back and forth. He was not very interested. He said it looks like I'm taking photographs of a bumper of a car. But regardless of what these scientists say, like Seth Shostak, he's looking for radio waves. Now, I said, visible light frequencies. If you were to Google the free space optical program, currently the government is using visible light frequencies to send and receive data. I am claiming that I'm detecting extraterrestrial messages in visible light frequency range. No scientist is searching in the visible light frequency range for extraterrestrial messages. So each scientist that I talk to, they basically dismiss it instantly. They don't listen. But then when we're using this technology already to communicate, and there's no scientists searching for messages from extraterrestrials with the technology we already know is in existence, I find that very strange that none of these scientists will listen.
Well, it sounds like you stumbled upon something in the wave of the future, like a wavelength. It's this new wavelength of the future, because it is possible to communicate with this packet of photons. There's been so many experiments done with the observer with double slot, with shooting photons through it, and they don't appear, or they move, they follow what your mind is thinking. And so there is that form of communication already happening on some level. But now we're talking about forming and putting them in packets and actually creating an image, which is a form of communication, because now it's coming as an image that we can actually understand. So are you getting symbols too, like letters, or symbols like mathematical equations? Is anything like that coming as well?
In the very first year, I had a symbol come through on my radio screen.
Yes.
At 3:33 in the afternoon when I got off of work. And what I did is I started videotaping, because at that time a lot of unexplained things were happening, so I was documenting as much as I could. And what it was is the radio started flashing, and then I videotaped it. And first it had my initials, WHL, on the screen, so it bleeped that. And then later it had these unknown symbols. The first one was like a hieroglyphic. It looked like a tree leaf upside down. The next three were numerical, and then the last one was a horse with a dash sign next to it. So that was definitely very strange. I was happy I caught it on video. That was one of the only, what I could say, could be words. They were interfering with the radio in order to send a message. The woman I spoke to at the house I was working at that time told me that her son has a guardian angel, supposedly, that watches him, and he was born at 333. And it was at 333 when my radio started freaking out. So I believe maybe the woman that watches over the son could have got in contact with someone else and was able to help relay the message while I was in her proximity. So there's many different things that could have happened.
Well, we talk a lot on this channel, William, about those numbers, 333, 444, 1111. People seem to see those or experience them at certain times of, hey, pay attention right now, for whatever reason. So I think that's interesting that you see some kind of maybe correlation there too. Now, I'm curious now what you think about, since we're talking about symbols, but also these photons coming through and creating an image. What do you think about the crop circles? Because crop circles, I've heard a couple different theories about them. One is that it's actually the planet, Gaia herself speaking out. Two, it's that it's extraterrestrial. Another theory is three, that it's created by these plasmic like orbs communicating. It could be our own intelligence at a higher level of humankind talking to ourselves. What do you think about the crop circles? Because they come to us in mathematical equations. Some of them look like a logarithmic in nature, and definitely they have some symbols that can be interpretive, again, on a more mathematical level. What do you think about those?
I haven't done too much research with that. The only thing I could possibly say is it could have something to do with frequency modulation, as far as being in another dimension or another realm. You could use frequencies. I saw a video where they were using frequency and sound to modulate or to move sand into patterns. And
Cymatics, it's called.
Yeah, so the issue with crop circles is that some of them can be faked. So the issue we have with that is some can be authentic, but the problem is Some can also be fake or a hoax. So it makes it very difficult to come to a conclusion. Is it possible to manipulate time and space and frequencies to send a message? Yes. But the problem is finding the scientific foundation to have solid evidence and proof of where it, or how it's made. I don't do any research with the crop circle, so I couldn't tell you the science involved with the branch breaking and stuff like that. I couldn't tell you.
Right, the DNA structure changing and how it twists and they fall, the crop falls down and it's never really damaged. That's interesting. Now, you guys, he's a scientist, so he has to have the basis behind it to understand. He's not just going to go off on objections or subjectivity. He's going to go more with the research behind it. So where does that take you then with the research where you are now? I know you're very busy in getting the information out there. That's how I found you. But where are you now with getting back into the nuts and bolts of this research to even understand it further?
Well, I'm still waiting. I read the new discoveries in physics every day. Scientists, I can't tell you where, I just read it this morning, just discovered a new neutrino, which hypothetically existed. It's called a sterile neutrino. So I'm following all the research with neutrinos, which is the ghost-like particle.
Yeah.
Scientists are looking for a ghost-like particle, but they're trying to find it thinking physically, when in all reality, when you're photographing, say you're on a paranormal research investigation, you're using digital photographs and digital cameras, and ghosts do appear in these digital photographs. So what these scientists are trying to do is find something that's a ghost, but they're not thinking in the sense of how do we take a photograph of a ghost. So I don't believe they're going to be able to find the ghost-like particle until they start bringing in some of these ghost hunting techniques. Because if you're looking for a ghost, you need to be using digital photography, which we know works at capturing spirits on film. I have actually myself captured a ghost back 3 or 4 years ago, and she passed right across the screen.
That was digital and not the old-fashioned rolls of film?
Right, it was all digital. I caught it on my phone camera, and it was a large woman. She was like 6 foot long, and she just came right straight across the screen. And it was definitely very interesting. So where I'm headed is I'm doing the research. I'm trying to figure out and put the pieces together. You know, and the more I dig, the more I realize, you know, the paranormal, extraterrestrial, is all connected through physics. And even our brains are quantum computers. They pass on light as information. And just knowing that alone, I realize if I'm entangling and seeing entangled photons with outside, I'm able to develop an experiment to see these entangled photons, that our brain has the ability, has the ability to detect or read these messages without the exterior surface that I'm using. So some people, like psychics, for example, who are able to read messages from beyond, could be using this type of physics, light, to communicate, and they're entangling photons with their mind.
Is that because they're able to see it? Like sometimes people say words flash across, or they'll see images. I'm a person that tends to see energies out there. I can see spirits sometimes. I can see auras. Would you say that's using that visible? Well, it's visible light spectrum, but not everybody can see it. So it's got to be maybe another piece of the spectrum. Maybe. What would you say about that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, when it comes to the brain, there's many mysteries, even consciousness, our soul, for example. I'm a firm believer in our soul now that I've captured a soul on film. So, you know, we ourselves are just beings of light. And right now we're physical. We're in a physical body, but our body is more like a machine to host our eternal soul. Now, there's a good possibility that soul, when it leaves the body, travels back to another physical form. So the one thing I don't know is if we're physical in another realm, we signed up to come to Earth, we are transported via light, which our soul, via light, we're transported, and light can carry information and data. So all your memories can be sent back to wherever you are in the universe. So basically what I'm realizing is that our brains are more capable of doing other things, but we're not able to use that part. And there's a good possibility that what I'm discovering seeing this other realm that they will be able to tell us how we can basically use more of our abilities on Earth because they want to communicate. These other beings are using these frequencies. They want to communicate with us. And my question is, what are we going to learn from talking with them?
Yeah, so how do you communicate back? So is it a one way dialogue, or not even dialogue? Is it talking to you, or would you say there's a way for you to communicate back to them?
Well, billions of people around the world pray. So in their mind, they're saying a prayer. Well, what that does is they're saying a prayer, but I basically found a way because these beings are able to read my mind. So basically, I would ask questions in my mind. And there was once I asked for animals. I said, "Can you show me animals? Is
Oh,
there
wow.
anything that you can show me?" And they showed me a giraffe and a tiger combined. They were like pushed in together. There was a giraffe and then a tiger. And there was another day I asked for buildings, and then they did show a city line, and then also they showed a pyramid, a floating
Oh,
pyramid,
yeah.
which I believe is kind of our Earth symbol, the pyramid. And then there was another time where I was asking, we had the pyramids, the buildings. Oh, I said, how do I know if I'm doing the right thing? How do I know that you're not hostile? How
Ah,
do I know that you're peaceful in nature? And how do I know that I'm doing the right thing? And what they did is they sent me a photograph of a gremlin. When I was from the movie Gremlins. When I was a young boy, I had the stuffed animal on my couch, and he was always there. I had two gremlins. So they sent me a photograph of a stuffed animal that I had when I was a small child. So how they were able to get
wow.
into my mind, and they basically made me feel comfortable. Like, yeah, we're not here to harm you, but we know everything about you. So they can basically read our thoughts. And that kind of goes into where we're dealing with science and religion, because for decades, or since the beginning of time, religion has always been interpreted by things that are unseen. We know they're there, but we don't see them. Some have the ability to see them, and they write it down what they see, and that gets interpreted over thousands of years. Now, what we are dealing with is a possibility that we're going to be able to communicate with what has been interpreted. So we're going to be able to talk to these other realms, and they're going to be able to tell us basically why we're here, what's our existence.
That's amazing because you're right. Religion has been based on faith alone for the most part. Not everybody's able to see these things. Some of us can, as we mentioned earlier. And I'm wondering if what they're doing is if they're also talking to you telepathically, or if you're talking to them telepathically, they receive that signal and then give back to you an image that you can respond to. Or do you sometimes hear them as downloads within your head?
Yeah, the one thing I've never been able to do is hear them.
Okay.
I have ideas, but my ideas have all came from my experiment. Star to star communication, intergalactic network, where I can encode data into one star, entangle that with another star, and I could ping every single star in the universe. I could ping them all within a matter of weeks and have a universal star map in a matter of
Wow.
months. And then not only could do that, I could also use our own star to store data. So in our sun, it takes 1 million years for the light to travel from the center all the way to the outside. So if I could entangle data, I could store data inside the sun, and it would be good for 1 million years before it gets out. And you could store unlimited data. So not only could I develop a computer that is quantum controlled that stores everything in the star, the sun, but then I could ping entanglement throughout the whole entire universe. So there's many different ideas that just come, but those ideas I believe all derive from the experiment. But there's 100% what we're seeing is the ability to communicate with another civilization. And what I've found is that there's humans, there's non-physical, and there's physical humans like me and you. And I found reptiles, advanced reptiles. So now there's two different species. Well, there's two species on Earth. So we need to understand what these messages are. And we also need to understand that the technology to make this possible is in existence, but there are no scientists that are searching for extraterrestrial messages looking into these visible light frequencies? And that's a question that we have to ask.
It's just absolutely stunning that you're getting kicked back from a lot of these people, or they're just saying no, we don't want to deal with this. Or you're going down the wrong path. But it's interesting though. You said the gentleman from SETI Institute did dialogue with you for a little bit. He must have had some curiosity at least. Are you seeing that there is some curiosity with some of these people at least?
Not at all. They're straight up dismissing it instantly. I just released an article about how they're dismissing it as pareidolia, what you said earlier, where you see objects. Now, we could get into that for a brief second. When you see a tree or a cloud or a rock and you see what looks like a face, most times those images aren't bilateral. Bilateral, I mean, like your face, when you cut a line straight through here, you have this side and that side. And a lot of them are, but when you look at that photograph is a rock. Or it's a cloud, or it's a physical object. But what we're dealing with is, in these photographs, they're smaller than the head of a coin. They have laser precision detail, and they're in the visible light frequency. Well, the visible light frequency has been proven by scientists to send and receive data. Also, the photons, they've entangled 8 photons, and they're able to send a bitmap. So the science is there to send images via just light. So that's why I feel that it warrants a further investigation. It can't be dismissed as anything until it's investigated properly by scientific teams. And I'm currently working with people overseas. I had a physicist, which is located outside of Saudi Arabia, who's working on the project. He's been able to photograph and use the same tools and equipment, and he actually received one of the gold reflective eyes. The reptilians.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Now, if people want to get involved in this with you, what do they need to do? Because I'm certain you're going to pique people's interest. You piqued mine.
The best thing to do is to go to my Facebook page, which is Bent Light, and you look for Albert Einstein. On the top of that page, the instructions and tools and equipment that you need are there. Also, if you go through the albums, the photo albums, there's a global bent light album. That is images sent to me from around the world.
Awesome.
I had one from outside Saudi Arabia that was very interesting. Then we had another one from Manchester, England. Then we had one from Texas. Not exactly sure the town there. And then we had another photograph sent to me from New York City. A good friend of mine who was able to capture a photograph of a woman holding what looked like a bouquet of flowers, and he took that during the eclipse, which was very, very wild.
Yeah.
So other people are doing the experiment. I've yet to see the detail that I've seen in my photographs. It takes a lot of time to do these, but I guarantee as long as you take the time to do the experiment and you run it consistently, you will capture something of detail.
Is there a better time of the day to do it when the sun's at a certain angle? What's the best location of the sun?
Yeah, well, I've been able to actually capture photographs around lunchtime, but most of the times I feel it's best to do it in the afternoon when the sun is at an angle. But as long as you have access to sunlight, there was a time where I had clouds move in, and I was able to capture, I believe it's photograph 5. There was 4 unknown entities that appeared, and
3 unknown entities, number 4?
Number 4 is 3 unknown entities. That is separate. I believe it's 5. But number 3, if you could pull that up, on the left you have a small gray, and it looks like an alien with a big head.
And you guys are seeing this now. Yes.
And then, so these I actually nicknamed the 3 amigos. But so you got a small extraterrestrial gray on the left-hand side.
Oh, I'm looking
at it. In the middle, you have a very tall man or woman wearing a robe, and it looks like she or he has a necklace on. And on the far right, you have a bald man wearing a black suit, and he's kind of cocked at an angle. So you got 3 entities just standing there looking in. That was an early photograph, which was, for me, very strange. And as you can see on the right, the bald man is one of the only people that has been able to reappear in over 5 different photographs. So the bald man, in one photograph, he was actually pointing in at me, and then there was this Indian looking aquatic, like an underwater creature, but it looked like an Indian, and he was looking. And he had pale blue eyes, and he was just looking. And it was like the bald man was saying, "See." So he was going around grabbing other species and bringing them and showing them that, hey, he's looking at us. We can look back at him.
That's amazing. So when you're seeing these, especially the bald man, are you getting some kind of sensation or feelings inside that correlates or wakes you up and says something to you? Are you getting like any kind of message? I know for me, when I get messages, a lot of times it's through feelings. I feel it and then the words come.
Well, with me, I take the photographs, but when I'm doing the experiment, I can't see anything.
That's true. I forgot.
I'm just in my room checking through the photographs, and I'm reviewing all the photographs when I see them. So then once I see them, I just crop it, and I can't really say that I get any feelings, but my mind wanders by being able to see them. My mind is just trying to figure out how they're there, why they're there, and what do they want.
Yeah, what do they want? It seems to me they want to be noticed. They want to be seen. They want to say, we're here. Contact is right around the corner, and it's happening right now, or disclosures may be coming soon. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? What do you think these messages are saying? I mean, it's very intriguing and captivating. And I hope many of you out there, check this out yourself. This is a very easy experiment to perform, although it does take time, as Williams told us, and it does take a lot of time to go through the images too. But he has all the directions there for you, and he's total transparency, really trying to bring this information out. And as he said, people around the world are joining him to look into this themselves further. I mean, everybody has the ability to do this. That's what I think is so cool about this. This is not reserved for the elite. And it's not something that's just kept from us. It's something that's being brought to the public. And no matter what you believe about this, why not give it a shot and see what you think?
And that's a good point. It's not like I have a special power or ability.
Right.
What I've been able to do is basically take what people have been doing with their minds, psychics and a lot of different people. I've been able to take it outside and develop an experiment to where I'm able to see this for the first time. And, I believe once this technology is developed, that we are going, just like we're Skyping now, we're going to be able to use these quantum entangled photons, and we're going to have a live video feed with these beings wherever they are, and we're going to be able to talk to them like I'm talking to you. What I did notice is there's some type of time difference. They're able to move extremely fast. So whenever I take the photographs and when they do appear, they're there and then they're gone in an instant. Like the human soul appeared in one frame, he appeared in another, he appeared in this, and he's gone at the speed of light. So what scientists would have to do is somehow develop some type of time delay with these photons and entanglement. I mean, the technology is out there. Whether the government's already using it and in contact with them, that's left up to question. But the main thing is this. If I discovered this with a water bottle in my backyard using a paint and spackle mixer, what does our government know about the visible light frequencies, and why isn't anyone being told that we're using them? Our government right now just put away $52 billion just in quantum research this year.
Wow, that's a huge figure. So that's great. I mean, it's great in one ways, but we want to know what's coming out of that money. Tell us what you're finding, you guys. This is just so fascinating to me. So a question go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just talking with a biologist, and she was from, I believe, somewhere down south, university. She's a professor. And I got into back and forth about this discovery. And she said a few things, I said a few things. And at the very end, the last thing she said was, there are some things that we know that we won't tell. There's certain things that we know already that we're not going to tell. So scientists are basically keeping a lot of secrets.
Of course. And that's kind of the nature of the beast, it seems. What I was going to ask you when you said these images move so quickly, so you've got your bottle sitting. Are you actually holding it, or is your bottle actually on some kind of apparatus like this? Or what do you do? How do you keep your bottle at that 45-degree angle?
I just hold it with my hand, and then I have the webcam attached to my pinky finger. So the webcam is down pretty low.
Okay.
The webcam will be down low, about an inch away from the steel. And there's actual videos on the Bent Light YouTube channel where you can see the process. So you can see the light. And the camera would not be facing the bottle, it would actually be facing the metal.
Oh, down at the metal. Okay, because
Yeah,
that's where the images are down here.
so you don't even see the bottle. All you see is the light that is refracting off the metal. So
Yeah, and you're seeing that in all those pictures you guys have been showing you. You'll see just the light that's on the metal. Now,
correct.
William, why aren't you using a larger sheet of black metal? Why are you using this?
I've experimented with that, and what it is this signal is stretched and it's curved, the signal. I have no way of seeing the signal, and I have no way of amplifying the signal. I don't even know what it looks like. So what I did was find a focal point. Now, I've used larger setup where I use larger pieces of metal, larger concave lens with water. And what I was unable to do is get anything to come into focus. I ran that larger setup with the smaller setup for almost a year straight, consistent with the smaller setup. I was still getting detailed photographs with the smaller setup, but the larger setup, nothing was in focus. So what I discovered was the focal point. And I don't have the technology, nor do I have the funds to know what the signal is or where it's at. So if you had the technology to amplify the signal, then you could tune it on a larger setup. But I myself have to, I can only, because I have no way of modulating the signal. I can only detect it. So I have to keep the exact focal point that I have. It's the only way they come into focus.
You couldn't project it onto a bigger screen because you don't have the technology to project that signal. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, so basically, if you were if you had something into focus, I'm trying to think of something that they would use like that, and you were to back it up, it would start to get out of focus.
Is that kind of like lens, maybe on a telescope or a microscope?
Correct.
Okay, you have to focus the lens, go backwards and forwards.
Yes, and then you have to focus it. So what I did is found one focal point that works, but if I were to make it larger or smaller, I don't have the technology to know even how to do that.
Well, these images are so clear. I'm looking at one right now with the bald guy and the alien, the three people, the three amigos. Fantastic. I'm just so excited you share these images with us, and it's exciting to see this. And I'm going to try this, you guys. How about you? I think this is really awesome. So we've come to that place in the show where if you have anything that you'd like to say to the audience in terms of inspiration or words of advice on how to get out there and do their own kind of experiments and exploration into these unseen dimensions, what would you like to tell people?
Question everything.
Ooh.
And also, I've been doing this research for 3.5 years, and in the very beginning, I started out with an idea that I could communicate with ghosts. And now, 3 years later, I've been able to do the research and found that it's all connected to science. And I had no way of knowing in the beginning that I would even find all this technology. I had no idea in the very beginning that visible light frequencies could be used to send data. So if you can imagine it, it can be possible. But the main thing I try to do is stick to the science. I try to follow everything scientifically and find the science to back my claim. And that is what I've done. Now, in the beginning, I got a lot of ridicule and a lot of negative comments. But I have pushed my way past all the bad and people telling me I'm crazy. And I've continued this because of one thing. Regardless of what people think, they can tell me that it's this or that. But in reality, scientists don't know exactly what this is, and in my heart I know it is unexplained. So I'm going to continue regardless of what people say. You know, scientists are dismissing it, and I'm still here talking about it. You know, they can say what they want to say, but they have no way of disproving my claim of contact with another civilization using visible light frequencies, because there's no way to disprove it. You can't tell me that data can't travel in visible light frequencies. So I would just say, if you believe in something, regardless of what other people think, do it. Because eventually you'll be where I'm at, talking to people about what you believe in. But it's not a belief. It's based by facts and evidence. So
Very well
Also,
said. I think it's important for people to think about. I love that you said don't trust everything because it's true. And the work that we do, when we do spirit communication, I always say don't trust the accuracy of the information or the messages you're receiving in the beginning. Really, you've got to look at it over time and space and see if it resonates and it stays consistent, or if it changes. And that helps you to do. It sounds like for you too to understand more about what you're exploring here and what's happening for you.
yeah, and my goal now for the future, like I'm talking to you, and I
Hmm.
appreciate you having me come on today.
Absolutely.
Um, My goal is to continue to communicate the results. The photos are graphic. They can't be disproved. So my goal as far as now is to communicate the results, work with other scientists outside of the United States, and try to get physicists or university to jump onto this and start investigating. Now, I don't know if scientists are allowed to use visible light frequencies. So these are other questions that need to be asked. So anyone who's watching this needs to just research and Google these visible light frequencies and how they're being used for information. And then that would help them to understand how I'm able to capture these photographs. And what I'm claiming is I have detected extraterrestrial messages or messages from another civilization, some human, some reptile. For the first time, I've been able to detect and have photographic evidence of another species that doesn't exist on Earth. Just today, NASA announced that they found the compounds for life on Mars. And they just released that today. So they found all the compounds. And those compounds are 3.5 million years old. Well, or billion, 3.5 billion years old.
Wow.
And that is about the time that life started to form on Earth. So did life from Mars come to Earth? That is a question that is now going to be asked by scientists currently with this new data that they've received of carbon and methane on planet Mars that's over 3.5 billion years old.
It's amazing. It's a process, you guys. It's always a process. You find this, and this leads to something else. And then you can re-ask the question, create your new postulate, create your new hypotheses, and move forward and keep doing the research for it.
And only an open mind
Ah,
is able to see the truth. In order to find the truth, I've cleared my mind. And what I'm able to do is just go from the evidence and try to get to form an answer. Where these things are, where are they, what are they, who are they, where did we come from? I'm just going to start fresh. We're going to have to rewrite the book here and try to understand what's going on. And I believe with this technology, if scientists look into it, which they probably already are, we're going to be able to have a video stream with life after it leaves Earth. So if you have video feed with the other side, when you leave Earth and your soul and your body transports back to wherever you are physical or non-physical, and you're able to communicate with others who have already left Earth, would dying be non-existent? So if death is going to become a non-existent because they're not dying, they're just there, but we're still able to talk to them. So would anyone ever die? That's another question to ask, because if you're still able to communicate with life after it leaves Earth, and you could just communicate like me and you are communicating,
yep.
it's unfortunate that our bodies are fragile, and they don't, I don't know how to describe it. We are just fragile as beings, but if we're able to communicate with ourselves after we leave Earth, that's going to change the way people vision life.
It absolutely will. And what my guides always say to me, they say that we don't know the word death. All we know is the word transition, and that you are from light, as you mentioned earlier, William, and that you go back to that light body. It's not like you ever really exist being. It's like physics say, matter's neither created nor destroyed, it just changes forms. And so I 100% concur with you. There's this continuity that you're somehow tapping into between these different dimensions or these different, let's say, interplanetary communications. It's fantastic work. So now where can everybody find you? Why don't you go ahead and tell us about that a little bit more, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, basically you can go to my website, bentlights.com, bentlights,
Links below.
or you can find me on Bent Light on Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook at Bent Light, and you look for Albert Einstein. I try to reply to comments and messages because I started this page when I made the initial discovery in 2015. So as soon as I made the discovery, I went public, and boy, was it crazy. If you go back and read some of the comments from 2015, they were beyond bizarre. But I continued, and now if it was with the help of everyone on social media how I was able to get to where I got to now with my understanding, because we were all trying to figure it out. There wasn't nothing. I knew it was unexplained, and I had to figure out how can we explain it. So a lot of the people online have been a big help, and what we do is just try to communicate the results as best we can and then get scientists to look into it. So you can find me on Bentlight or bentlights.com. All my contact info is there. If you need to get a hold of me, send me an email or send me a phone call. Call me.
He's great at responding, I can tell you that. Well, I want to thank you, William, so much for being on the show. What you shared is just absolutely captivating, fascinating, and far-reaching. I think you're onto something here. So thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, I do appreciate it. And remember, too, this is still just the beginning. This is a very new discovery, and there's more discoveries to be made. My experiments will be back on, and we need scientists to be doing the same thing. And God only knows what we're going to discover next.
That's awesome. So there you have it, you guys. Here's a gentleman who's out there really pushing the boundaries of what he was told was unseen and actually using the visible spectrum to be able to see what really can be seen and using it all through light. I mean, why not join him on this venture? Why not do your own explorations into this? It's a real simple experiment to try, yet it may take a little bit of time, but in that time you may find something too that you can share with him. We'd love to hear about your experiences with this technique as well. So now get out there and push the boundaries and go out there and explore and find that which you seek. And thank you for joining me. This was Creative Visions TV. I'm your host, Karen Dahlman. And until next time, happy explorations. Bye-bye.